I do apologize for the state of my recordings. I am doing them with echo and reverb on purpose. I am masking my voice. That's why I'm speaking in such a slow, monotone voice. I honestly just don't like how my voice actually sounds when I talk. If you don't like it, don't listen. Sorry. I'm not changing it for anyone. This one, I may or may not have added in some details of my own life. It doesn't matter if I have or haven't. Her name was not important to the things that watched. They simply knew her as the threshold, the small, tender place where the barrier between the mundane and the truly vast had worn thin. It started not with sight, but with acoustics. In the dead space between thoughts, while staring at the speckled ceiling of her bedroom, or waiting for the fluorescent hum of a classroom projector, she began to perceive a sound. It wasn't loud, it was a pressure. A sound felt deep in the bone marrow, like the slow, inexorable turning of a wheel, millions of miles wide. At first, she identified it as anxiety. The doctor, sitting behind a polished desk, called it generalized fatigue and prescribed something to smooth the edges. But the pills only muted the familiar noise of the world, making the internal, low hum from the things below clearer. The internal world was already saturated with pain before the hum began. At school, her identity, the quiet, undeniable truth about the girls she loved, was a weapon others wielded with sharp, casual cruelty, turning every hallway into a gauntlet of hissed laughter and pointed avoidance. This constant, toxic atmosphere crept home, hardening the air around her mother, who responded not with anger, but with a chilling, palpable distance. This distance, colder and heavier than any shout, left the girl feeling like a mistake constantly being apologized for by silence. The quiet rejection of the human world was already preparing the ground for the cosmic one. The things below did not scream. They did not roar. They whispered. The whispers began as validation of her deepest insecurities. "You are small," they would hiss, not in a voice, but in a raw burst of concept that felt like static behind her eyes. "You are an unnecessary collection of atoms, occupying space without meaning." She would look in the mirror and hear the collective, crushing agreement of a billion non-human minds that her reflection and the inconvenient truth she held was a mistake. The parallels with her human struggles were perfect. When she pulled away from friends, convinced her presence was a burden, the whispers agreed, "Unburden them. They do not comprehend the space you occupy." This was immediately followed by a thought that felt perfectly her own. Your mother's silence is the only honest assessment of your worth. When sleepless nights stretched into weeks, the things below praised her vigilance, for sleep was a waste of consciousness, and the secrets she was now learning required sacrifice. She began drawing, not people or places, but shapes, impossible, repeating knots that defied perspective, structures that were too vast to be contained on a sheet of paper. Her notebook filled with these fractal sins, each line feeling less like an effort and more like a transcription dictated by the pressure in her skull. The girl grew impossibly, terribly lonely. She knew, with chilling certainty, that no one else heard the hum, and no one else saw the shadows stretch just a degree too long under the weak winter sun. This isolation was the final gift of the great old ones. They had successfully severed her connection to the warm, comforting lie of human reality. One Tuesday night, sitting alone in the quiet center of her house, the whispers changed. They stopped criticizing and started offering. "The hum is the truth, little spark. The hum is the knowledge that the universe is ancient and indifferent. The effort of being seen is exhausting. You are tired. You do not have to fight the weight anymore." She saw herself, a tiny, fragile vessel fighting a tide of incomprehensible black water. She saw her mother's worried eyes, her father's strained silence, the futile, comforting distractions of her peers. None of it mattered against the truth of the hum. In the final moments, the whispers coalesced into a single, vast, hungry presence. It offered her absolute silence, absolute stillness, and the chance to finally step out of the light and be embraced by the infinite cold dark she now knew to be her true home. She made her choice. The last sound she heard, beyond the fading rush of her own blood, was not human. It was a noise like the satisfied, slow settling of a mountain of dust onto itself, an ancient, quiet sigh of acceptance. The world lost a small, lonely, unnecessary collection of atoms, and in the black vestibules between the stars, the things below simply noted the successful assimilation of one more consciousness into the universal stillness. The human was complete,